Right, buckle in. These Reddit stories go from mildly questionable to what on earth is wrong with people in about 30 seconds.
Imagine being treated like a walking ATM by your own family, and then being called the villain for finally putting a stop to it. That's basically what happened to this man. I'm a 50-year-old bloke, and back in my 20s, I had several situations where friends and family borrowed money from me. They either never paid it back, or I had to practically drag it out of them. Everyone knew I made decent money, and everyone knew I saved habitually. So whenever they got hard up, they'd come straight to me. It was always the same routine. "Come on, mate, I know you've got the money," followed by a sob story and "I'll pay you back when I get..." So I came up with a plan. I opened a brand new bank account, put $20 into the savings, the minimum, and only kept enough in the current account for bills, groceries, and whatever I needed that day. By the end of each day, that account would be almost empty. Whenever someone hit me up for cash, I'd say, "Sorry, I'd love to help, but money's tight right now." They'd call rubbish, so I'd log in and show them the empty account. They'd walk away looking defeated. After a few years, people started asking where all my money had gone. Obviously, I wasn't going to tell them the truth, that it was all sitting safely in savings, a high-yield account, and investments. So I'd say things like beer, strip club, or casino. And not only did they believe me, because that's exactly how they wasted their own money, but by the 2010s, they were actually lecturing me about being irresponsible. By the 2010s, I got married, and I told my wife the whole story. She thought it was hilarious. Fast forward to this Halloween. My sister came over and made some comment about how glad she was that I'd finally learned to be more responsible with money. My wife burst out laughing and spilled everything. My sister confronted me, and I confirmed the whole thing was true. Then I told her that I'm not 20 anymore, and if she or anyone else tried to hit me up for money now, the answer is no. She told the rest of the family. Some of them think it's hilarious, others think I'm a tight-fisted arsehole. A few even asked how much I actually have, and I told them it's none of their business. So now I'm left wondering, am I the arsehole?
Imagine trying to manage constant migraines, only for your own mom to trust random internet natural remedies more than your actual doctor. That's pretty much what happened to me. I'm 16, and yesterday my mom, who's 51, took me to my neurologist because my migraines have been absolutely brutal lately. My mom is massively into natural treatments, and she's given me loads of vitamins and random natural things she's found online. She gets annoyed if I don't take them, but it's not out of disrespect. I've done my own research, and half of these things either won't help or are flat out too much. For example, she has me taking nearly 700 milligrams of magnesium a day. 700. I looked it up myself and found out I really shouldn't be having more than around 400 a day. When I mentioned it to her, she got angry. She also sends me these ChatGPT articles and gets annoyed when I don't read them, but they don't feel accurate at all. One of them somehow suggested I take 850 milligrams. So at the appointment, she was talking to my neurologist about all the medicines and supplements, and she mentioned one of the pills she'd put me on. The doctor said I should stop taking it once my new prescription comes in, because it already contains magnesium. Then I asked how much magnesium I'm supposed to have daily, and she said exactly what I'd been telling my mom this whole time, around 350 milligrams. This is where I got a bit petty. I turned to my mom and said, "I told you so." I was joking, but she got really offended. When we got to the car, she was angry and didn't speak to me. I honestly don't think I'm the villain here. I've been trying to tell her what's safe, but she won't listen to anything that isn't ChatGPT or someone older than her. It's my health, and I just wanted her to realize I do actually know what I'm talking about. So, am I the arsehole?
Imagine trying to befriend someone everyone else ignores, only to end up being accused of using them. That's the situation I somehow found myself in. I'm 18, and I took ASL classes back in high school, but I'd never actually had a deaf friend until now. When I started college this year, there was a deaf-mute guy in my class who uses an interpreter during lessons. Everyone's polite to him, but no one really made the effort to get to know him or become close. And honestly, I'm not judging. If I hadn't already learned ASL in high school, I probably wouldn't have picked it up just for one classmate either. But once I told him I knew some ASL and started signing with him, we naturally became friends. Since September, we've been signing almost every day, and my ASL has improved massively. About a week ago, he suggested I start taking ASL lessons again. I made a joke, signed and laughed, saying that that's what you're for. It was absolutely meant as a joke, but maybe my signing wasn't clear because he took it seriously and got offended. I apologized straight away and explained I was joking. He said he understood and even apologized for getting upset. He was a bit distant for a couple of days, but eventually we were completely fine again. Today, though, one of my other friends mentioned he'd noticed things were a bit off between us and asked if everything was okay. I told him we'd had a small disagreement, but it was sorted now. For some reason, he wouldn't drop it. First, he made comments like, "There's some truth in every joke," which I just laughed off. But then he said, "I knew you wouldn't hang with a guy like him for no reason." I was genuinely stunned. I told him that was a rude thing to say, and he insisted it was the truth. So I called him out for being a bigot and an ableist, because that's exactly what it was. That clearly hit a nerve, because he snapped back and said I'm worse than him, claiming I'm taking advantage of a disabled guy and using him for my own benefit. So now I'm left wondering, am I the arsehole? Imagine your partner welcoming their family into your home whenever they like, but the moment it's your family, suddenly it's a problem. That's basically what happened to me. I'm 27, Indian, and I live in Prague with my wife, who's 28 and Czech. We both work, we own a 2-bedroom flat, and up until now the second bedroom has always been our guest room. Her family is lovely. Her parents or younger sister visit fairly often, usually for 2 or 3 days every couple of months. She always tells me in advance, but she never asks for permission. And I've never had an issue with it. We're not introverts. We don't struggle socially, and I've always been warm and welcoming when her family stay. Meanwhile, none of my relatives have ever stepped into our home. International flights are ridiculously expensive for the average Indian family, so it's just never happened. One of my close female cousins is 21 and works at an Indian research institute. She's doing brilliantly and has been invited to speak at the Prague Congress Center. This will be her first ever trip abroad. She has absolutely no experience traveling internationally, and she's really nervous. Naturally, her family see me as their support here since I'm settled in Prague. They video called me the day after she got the invitation, asking for guidance about traveling, the city, everything. During the call, I offered for her to stay with us. It would be far more comfortable for her, and it would save her a lot of money on accommodation, which is a huge deal for them. We're close. We've always helped one another, so it felt like a natural thing to offer, and they agreed. Right after the call, I told my wife everything. She was not happy. She said I shouldn't have finalized anything without asking her first, and she said she wasn't comfortable having someone she didn't know staying in our home for 5 days. She brought up hostels being cheap enough, and that my cousin is an adult and can sort herself out. I stayed calm and respectful, but her voice kept getting louder. Eventually, I gently pointed out that she lets her own family stay with us without asking for my permission, and I've never had any problem with it. And this would literally be the first time anyone from my family would ever visit us. That's when she got properly angry. So, am I the arsehole?
Imagine being upfront about something that defines your whole future, only for your fiancé to accuse you of hiding things years later because of one detail you honestly forgot. That's where I've ended up. I'm a woman in my late 20s, and my fiancé, let's call him Carlos, is in his early 30s. We're still arguing about something that happened 2 weeks ago. When I was 21, I had a partial hysterectomy because of adenomyosis. It was incredibly painful, and my doctor spent 2 full years fighting for approval because so many people were against the idea. I didn't mind losing my uterus. First, it caused constant pain. Second, I've always been child-free. Even as a kid, I never liked children and never wanted them. I met Carlos 3 years ago. On day 1, I told him I was child-free and completely sterile. He said he was child-free too, so we went ahead with the relationship. He proposed in September, and we started slowly planning the wedding. I never specifically told him about the hysterectomy, but I genuinely wasn't hiding it. It just slipped my mind because, in my head, the important part was already shared. I can't get pregnant. My mom didn't know about the engagement yet because she had been abroad taking care of her elderly sister, and I wanted to tell her in person. She came back 3 weeks ago, and after giving her a week to rest, we invited her to lunch so we could share the news. Now, Carlos is a prankster, not in a weird way, just harmless stuff. While we were eating, and before I could even show my mom the ring, he grabbed her hand and said, "I'm sorry, Mrs. My Mom. I impregnated your daughter." My mom burst out laughing, looked at me and said, "Either you're about to get rich or you grew a new uterus." I laughed and said I hoped not, because last time it took talking to half the doctors in the country and their grandmas to get approval. Carlos froze and said, "What do you mean?" My mom said, "The hysterectomy, of course." Carlos told us he'd never heard about it. My mom laughed again and asked how he didn't know. I said I must have never brought it up because I genuinely don't think about it anymore. We were quiet for a moment. Then I showed my mom the ring and we celebrated. After she left, Carlos confronted me. He asked why I never told him about the surgery. I told him I did tell him the important bit, that I'm sterile. He said the bigger issue was the principle, and that if I could keep something so major to myself for years, then what else might I hide? I feel like that's unfair. I shared the relevant information at the time. I wasn't trying to hide anything. I simply didn't think the medical details mattered once we'd already agreed on being child-free. So now we're asking outside opinions. Am I the arsehole for not telling him about the hysterectomy, or is he overreacting?
Like, subscribe, drop a comment, and check the community tab while you're at it.